Hello students, hope you are all doing good. You did learn lesson 1 and lesson 2. They form the basics in chemistry. Please be thorough with them and jot down the difficulties or the queries that you have in these two chapters so that you can clarify it once we meet in school. In this video, we will be learning about the next lesson, lesson 3, and that is water. Now you have already learnt about water in your previous standards. You have learnt so many aspects of water. Here again it is a repetition except a little part which you are learning new this year. So we will not touch upon all that is not needed for your scope of syllabus. We will only learn what is there in the scope because you will be facing board exams. Now coming to water, you know water is known as the elixir of life. What do you mean by elixir? In Kannada, we say elixir is nothing but amruta. So here, water is so much essential to sustain life. That is why we refer to it as elixir of life. Next to air, water is very important natural resource. Coming to what are the points that we have in the scope of syllabus and what we will be covering in this video, let us have a glance. In this video, you will be learning water as a universal solvent. You will also be learning about solutions, saturated and unsaturated solution. You have this one thing which is very new, which you have not learned in the previous standards, and that is qualitative effect of temperature on solubility. Now when we talk about qualitative effect of temperature on solubility, as the temperature increases, what effect will that have on the solubility of salts? So you have only 3 salts in the scope. You should know the effect of temperature on solubility of these 3 salts, and that is sodium chloride, potassium nitrate and calcium sulfate. Solubility of gases. Here of course is again a repetition and this is not there in the scope, but you might get few reasoning questions, so we will just discuss this. We will learn here how solubility of gases and pressure and temperature are related. We will learn water of crystallization. We will cover hydrated and anhydrous substances. Before coming to solution, let us know the definition of these two terms. You already know what a solute is. Just recall, a solute is a substance which dissolves in the solvent. Solute is a substance which dissolves in the solvent. When we say solvent, we can also refer solvent as medium. So this you know very well. The substance which dissolves in the solvent is called as a solute. Then what is a solvent? A solvent is a substance which dissolves solute in it. Which dissolves solute in it. Or we can also say medium of dissolution. Medium of dissolution. So, a substance which dissolves solute in it, or the medium of dissolution is nothing but the solvent. Now, when we know the meaning of these two terms, we will come to the definition of solution. Solution is a homogeneous mixture. This is again a repetition for you. A homogeneous mixture of a solute in a solvent. Of a solute in a solvent. And this is so very clear. It is so very self-explanatory. A homogeneous mixture of a solute in a solvent, we call it as a solution. Now we'll come to the point, why is water called as a universal solvent? Water is called as a universal solvent because it can dissolve most of the substances in it. When I say it dissolves most of the substances, I didn't say all the substances, most of the substances in it. So note here, most cannot be all. So because water has the capacity to dissolve most of the substances in it, we call water as a universal solvent. This is one reasoning question which is always asked. Now then, when we know what a solution is, let us learn the two types of solution, unsaturated solution and saturated solution. Suppose you take a beaker with some water in it. Now what do? I add some salt in it, say 1 teaspoon of salt in it. When I add salt to the beaker containing water, the salt gets occupied in the space, empty space in the water. Then if I keep adding another salt, that also gets dissolved. Now this solution which can dissolve more of the solute in it, we call such a solution as an unsaturated solution. So an unsaturated solution is one which can dissolve more of the solute at a given temperature. More of the solute at a given temperature. This is very important, temperature. So when I added 1 teaspoon of salt, it got dissolved. Another teaspoon also it got dissolved. That means it can dissolve some more. So I call that as unsaturated solution. Now I add the 3rd teaspoon of salt, the 4th teaspoon of salt. When I add the 5th one, the salt gets settled down. It doesn't dissolve. Now this solution which cannot dissolve any more solute in it, we call such a solution as a saturated solution. Cannot dissolve any more solute in it at a given temperature. Again, that what do I mean at a given temperature? Why do we say at a given temperature is so very important? Because when I increase the temperature, you know that the molecules in the water, they gain kinetic energy, and these molecules, they move far apart. When they move far apart, there is space that is created in between, and when the space is created in between, it can take some more of the solute. That is why we are very particular with at a given temperature. How to convert a saturated solution to an unsaturated solution? Now when I told you one way how it has to be converted, that is by increasing the temperature. When the temperature is increased, the molecules gain kinetic energy and they move far apart, and space is more in between the molecules. So the intermolecular space increases, which can take more of the solute. That is one way how a saturated solution can be converted to an unsaturated solution. Now the other way how we can convert it is by adding more of the solvent. Now when I add more of the solvent to it, then again the solute can dissolve in the space that is being there in the solvent. It can occupy the intermolecular space in the solvent, and by these two ways a saturated solution can be converted into an unsaturated solution. That is by increasing the temperature, adding more of the solvent. Now you have also learnt about supersaturated solution in your previous standard. It is not there in the scope. We'll just recall it. We are not going to learn it in detail. A supersaturated solution is one which can hold more of the solute at a given temperature than that present in a saturated solution. So how much ever solute is present in a saturated solution, more than that a supersaturated solution can hold. Such a solution we call it as a supersaturated solution. Now we'll just move on to the next part of the lesson, That is what is meant by solubility. This is again what you have learned. Solubility is always, it is nothing but how much the solute can dissolve. So when we say how much a solute can dissolve, it is nothing but it is the maximum amount of solute. It is the maximum amount of solute that can dissolve, or you can say that can saturate or required to saturate 100 grams of solvent at a particular temperature. 100 grams of solvent at a particular temperature. Here again temperature is very important, because you know as the temperature increases, the solubility also increases. So solubility is nothing but the maximum amount of solute that is required to saturate 100 grams of solvent at a particular temperature. Now after knowing what is solubility, we are proceeding to the next part. We will learn what is meant by a solubility curve. Now here this part is what which is very new you are learning. Now in the solubility curve, we will be plotting the solubility of the salts with respect to temperature. So the solubility of a given substance at a given temperature can be determined from the solubility curve. Solubility curve is nothing but a graphical representation. A graphical representation between the solubility and temperature. Now if you plot a graph with x-axis temperature, y-axis solubility. So to determine the solubility of a given substance at a given temperature, we use solubility curve. We also call it as solubility graph. So solubility curve or solubility graph mean the same. Let us learn the qualitative effect of temperature on solubility. We already know that temperature and solubility are related. Now we will know how they are related with respect to these three salts. First, when there is an increase in temperature, solubility increases. Solubility increases. This is always there. When the temperature increases, the solubility increases. So for this we have example potassium nitrate. You need to give the example potassium nitrate. As the temperature increases, solubility increases. But in some cases, when there is an increase in temperature, solubility increases slightly. Solubility increases slightly. So when we say solubility increases slightly, we have the salt sodium chloride as an example for this. So as the temperature increases in some salts, the solubility increases slightly. One of that is sodium chloride. Now then, as the temperature increases, increase in temperature, solubility decreases. This happens in some salts. Solubility decreases. Now for this we have an example, calcium sulfate. So as the temperature increases, the solubility decreases. So you need to know three things. When the temperature increases, in some of the salts, solubility increases. That is potassium nitrate as an example. Increase in temperature, solubility increases slightly means sodium chloride. Increase in temperature, solubility decreases means calcium sulfate. So these are the three things which you should know thoroughly. Solubility increases slightly, solubility decreases. Whenever you hear the term solubility increases, quickly potassium nitrate should come to your mind. Whenever you hear solubility increases slightly, sodium chloride should come to your mind. Whenever you hear solubility decreases, calcium sulfate should come to your mind. These are the only three salts on which you get questions either directly or indirectly. So please learn them thoroughly. We will learn how solubility of gases is related to pressure and how solubility of gases is related to temperature. Now we know that when the pressure increases, solubility also increases. Solubility increases. This happens in case of the soda water. So we can give the example as soda water. Now you know that in the soda bottle, the carbon dioxide dissolves in water under increased pressure. As the pressure increases there, the solubility of carbon dioxide in water also increases. That is why when the soda water bottle is open, the pressure decreases and it opens out with a fizz. This is one reasoning question. Why does the soda bottle opens with a fizz? This is one example for the relationship between pressure and solubility. As the pressure increases, solubility also increases. In the same way, when there is increase in temperature, what happens to the solubility? Solubility decreases. Now this you have seen in everyday life. When we keep water for boiling, you know that the water tastes good because of the dissolved gases and the salts in it. Now as you boil water, the gases escape, and when the gases escape, the taste of the water decreases. That is why the boiled water always tastes flat, or you can say tastes bland, or doesn't have any taste. All mean the same. This is another reasoning question that you might get. Why do boiled water taste flat? It's because as the temperature increases, the solubility of the dissolved gases in it decreases. In the same way, you know, even in summer, the fishes, they do come to the surface of the water. So why do the fishes come to the surface of the water in summer? It's because in summer, as the temperature increases, the dissolved oxygen in the water decreases, and hence the fishes come to the surface of the water in order to take more oxygen. Now we will learn what is meant by water of crystallization. You already know that water of crystallization is nothing but the fixed number of water molecules that enter into a loose combination with a substance, or you can just learn as a fixed number of water molecule present in the substance. Now what do we mean by this fixed number of water molecules? Let us take some examples. Gypsum, calcium sulfate, dihydrate, di means 2 molecules of water, we have blue vitriol. This is copper sulfate pentahydrate. Penta means 5 molecules of water. Green vitriol, which is iron 2 sulfate heptahydrate, 7 molecules of water. We have Epsom salt, magnesium sulfate heptahydrate, then Glauber salt, which you are familiar again. It is sodium sulfate decahydrate. Deca means 10. Then lime salt Peter, pronounce it as Peter. That is nothing but calcium nitrate tetrahydrate. So now we have all these salts which contain water of crystallization or water molecules which are entering into the loose chemical combination with the salts. So all these salts containing the water molecules, we call them as water of crystallization. So these salts which contain water of crystallization are also called as hydrated salts. They are known as hydrated salts. So what is a hydrated salt? A hydrated salt is one which contains a fixed number of water molecules in them. They have a fixed number of water molecules in them. That is why we have here as dihydrate, pentahydrate, heptahydrate, decahydrate, tetrahydrate and all, because the water molecules in them are fixed. You did learn about the thermal decomposition of hydrated copper 2 sulfate or copper sulfate pentahydrate in the previous lesson, that is chemical changes and reactions. There, when hydrated copper sulfate is heated, it loses its water of crystallization and only copper sulfate remains. So what happens here? The blue color copper sulfate changes to white. You notice this as change in color, and even the crystalline form changes to amorphous. Crystalline means it has a definite geometric shape. Amorphous, they are just like the fine powder. For example, talcum powder, that is amorphous powder. So here hydrated copper sulfate loses water molecule and becomes amorphous, that is white copper 2 sulfate. Now we have some salts which do not have these water molecules. For example, take KCl, NaCl, KNO3. Now when these do not have water molecules, we call these as anhydrous salts. Now anhydrous salts are nothing but the salts which do not contain water of crystallization. The salts which do not contain water of crystallization. So here you are learning two things: hydrated salts, anhydrous salts. Hydrated salts are those salts which contain a fixed number of water molecules. Anhydrous salt is nothing but a salt which do not contain water of crystallization. You have examples for all of these. Learn them well. You should know the common name, the chemical name and the chemical formula for hydrated salts. For this part of the lesson, we have assignment which you will be checking it in the description box. Thank you till we meet again.